Kia ora tātou katoa. It's hard not to feel gloomy about peace. War, violence, and the destruction of people's lives seems more frequently than not to have the upper hand. So we paint a teardrop on the flag of Ukraine, the one that's on a billboard outside our church. There's a lot to weep about. And as one of our hymns today says, God weeps too. The divine mix of compassion, mutuality, and earthiness cries tears of sorrow and solidarity. It's hard to know what to do. It's clear in the Ukrainian-Russian war that the Russians, initially through proxy troops called separatist forces, and then without pretense, are the instigators and aggressors. Putin has not been shy in proclaiming his imperialistic ambitions. So NATO countries and others have supplied weapons, boycotted Russian goods, seized Russian assets in the West, and generally done what they can without supplying troops, which would escalate the conflict substantially. And the Russians haven't overrun the country, but they haven't retreated back across the border either. It's hard to know what to do, what would help. The problem with peace is that it's a slow grow. Like a tree, it needs to be planted in prepared soil, then tended and watered. And it needs protection from the wind. Ideally, it needs to be part of a forest. It takes years to grow and to find its strength. And the problem with war is that it's a quick fix that doesn't fix. It's a chainsaw that in a moment destroys decades of growth and enjoyment. It leaves destruction in its wake, the stumps of people's lives and dreams, no matter who the so-called winners are. Smashing is always faster than making. And our problem is, and on this small planet, war is now everyone's problem, that there is those who believe that to smash is to gain. To gain is to be powerful, and power is what is ultimately important. As Shirley Murray's hymn says, God will weep over violence and war till we change the way we win. Changing the way we win seems to go to the heart of it. That, and possessions and gain and greed, and the misguided belief that we can relieve our hurt by hurting others. Our reading today from Luke 12 is a snippet from one of those early Jesus groups living in a time of imperial oppressive violence. The first part, verses 32-33, is about treasure, and the second part about being ready for some end-time wedding banquet, after life as you know it has been ripped by a chainsaw. Suffice it to say that I don't believe in literal end-time wedding banquets, but I recognize the sentiment. When the jackboots start smashing your doors in your life, you want to dream something, anything, to escape to. I find one phrase in those treasure verses worth pondering. Make purses for yourselves that don't wear out. The verses surrounding this phrase make it clear that these purses are not for coins or other possessions. Indeed, they're not literal purses made of cloth or leather that a thief could steal or a critic could destroy. So a waka huia, a container of tonga, treasure, but not to hold in one's hand, but to hold in one's heart. For it is treasure in the heart that matters. And it is treasure that's not in the heart that wars are fought over for gain, for greed, for ego. There's a painting that I'll show this morning of an artist, and maybe it's Vincent, painting sunflowers, maybe for Ukraine. And he's got this easel set up and he's painting in the midst of the violence and destruction of war. All the houses down each side are blown up and destroyed, all in greys. And there's Vincent with his sunflowers, a stark difference. The artist in this painting sees with his natural sight the pain of shattered grey buildings and lives, but paints, seeing with the eyes of his heart, a picture of bright, colourful, restorative hope. There are two ways of seeing. Blessed be the one who can see with the eyes of the heart what might be, could be, should be, and what is worth believing for and working towards. Another thing about this purse, this wakahuia of the heart, is that it not only sees differently our landscape and our shattered lives, but sees the persecutors, the gatherers of gain, as wounded, dangerous, but wounded, violent, but worthy of mercy. For the eyes of the heart see a future where there is room for everyone, where even the dangerous and seemingly powerful lion can lie down and be at peace with a seemingly weak lamb. Our faith forebears understood Jesus and the God Jesus revealed to be not the lion, the powerful, conquering, but the lamb, the weak and the vulnerable. And from that weakness, Jesus was able to build a bridge out to those who were enemies. Each day I read the Guardian update about the Ukrainian-Russian war, and it's not pleasant reading. Good news, so-called, is when Russians die. Bad news is when Ukrainians die. It all reads like chainsaws, stumps, and vast swathes of deforestation. But within my lifetime, there have been some enormous success stories when it comes to peace. I think of the Berlin Wall falling in 1989 and all that it meant, ending 44 years of a divided Germany. I think of apartheid South Africa coming to an end in 1990, and those who for 42 years had fought, worked, petitioned and prayed, including some of you who are listening. I think of Northern Ireland with its Presbyterian heritage and the Good Friday Accords of 1998, signalling the end of nearly 30 years of warfare. Peace can surprise us. I never thought those conflicts would so radically change or so move to resolve in my lifetime. Not that peace comes easy or stays easy. As the Irish poet Pádraig Ó Tuama writes in his The North End of Ireland, It is both a dignity and a difficulty to live between these names, North and Island, perceiving politics in the syntax of the state. But at the end of the day, the reality is that whether we change or whether we stay the same, these questions will remain. Who are we to be with one another? And how are we to be with one another? And what to do with all those memories of all those funerals? And what about those present whose past was blasted far beyond their future? I wake, you wake, she wakes, he wakes, they wake. We wake and take this troubled beauty forward. Taking troubled beauty forward requires, as Pádraig says, stories that open up the possibility of relationships where there are currently none. Which is, of course, a leaf straight out of Jesus' peace-building playbook. Think of those Samaritan enemy stories. The Samaritan woman at the well who later goes and proclaims to her own people, "Come and see." This is the term of an evangelist. And the Good Samaritan, of course, that parable, the one who showed mercy and care to the beaten Jew. And the leper, 1 out of 10 lepers, the only one who gave thanks. Guess what? He was a Samaritan. These are stories in our tradition that reimagine the possibility of relationship between two races, two religions, two enemies. Jesus was trying to take troubled beauty forward. Then think of other stories. Healing the foreign Syrophoenician woman's daughter. Though the punch in that story is her besting Jesus in a theological argument. Then there is the healing of the Roman centurion's servant, a Roman. Again and again, the peace-building playbook is the telling of stories that crack the certainty that Jesus' country men and women are special, separate from, and superior to others. These stories give substance to both love and enemies, and are part of a bridge-building strategy between the two. These stories are also about changing the way we win. We don't win by killing our enemies. We win by showing mercy, rehousing them, treating them like we would like to be treated if our roles were reversed. We win not when our pockets are enriched or our profits are enlarged, but when the empty purse of the heart believes for and motivates us for hope. Hope when it seems, as far as we can see, to be absent. Winning is living on, not separate from or superior to our former enemy, who is still our former enemy, but with whom we plant seedlings in the local reserve and help out at the local food bank. When the ways of the heart are sung stronger and longer than the bellowing and the fear-filled ways of war, and we find our feet and the feet of even our enemies tapping along to that song, there is a zephyr of hope in the air. We pray this day, always.